We got so much to get through today. And here's the thing, okay, I'm a journalist. My name's Richard Dean. If you weren't in the first session, I present the Business Breakfast radio show on Dubai Eye. Fine. To me, facilities management faces a number of challenges. The one I would focus on, from a media perspective, is facilities management has a branding or a public relations problem. Because here's the thing, if I was to say on the radio tomorrow morning, coming up in 10 minutes' time, we're going to have a discussion about facilities management, everybody would turn over and listen to Chris Fade, because they'd think it was boring. The irony, though, is, if we actually had a discussion about some of the issues that facilities management covers, things like maintenance fees in apartment blocks, things like air conditioning bills, saving money while saving the planet. These are the very issues that get the most interaction, the most engagement, the most text messages, and the most social media activity from our listeners. So that says to me that FM, facilities management, maybe needs a rebranding. I don't know what that is, but there's something in that. And I know a number of our speakers today make the point that FM needs to increase, I think one of them says, its visibility in front of the board level people. And this is one of the things. It's by no means the only challenge. Some of them are technical, some of them are better behavioral. But one of the challenges, I think, is a branding, a communications, and a public relations challenge. And maybe we can touch on that over the next couple of hours or so. We've got a couple of presentations, a couple of case studies that people are going to share with you. I'm looking forward to those. But most importantly, as with this morning, the guys on the stage do not have a monopoly on expertise. They do not have a monopoly on experience, quite the opposite. We really want to hear your stories, your examples, your challenges, and some of the solutions, some of the victories that you've had as well, because there's enormous progress being made, and let us not forget that. So this is my one request to you. In fact, two requests to you. One is you keep your mobile phones on silent. The second one is that we get your energy, and you can share your ideas and your stories. Can I rely on you for that? Good. I see some nodding heads. Whether that's because you're falling asleep or because you're agreeing with me, I'm not too sure. I should assume it is because you are agreeing with me. So, our first panel discussion this afternoon is an important one. The headline is this: supporting new facilities management guidelines in lieu of the regulations seen in other markets. And boiling it down, I picked out three themes from this. There are others, but three themes in particular. The three R's. They are rating, refrigeration, and also retrofit. We've got three great panelists who are going to join us on stage to share their thoughts on this. Let me introduce them now and welcome them to the stage. First of all, a board member of the Middle East Facilities Management Association, Ali Al-Suwaidi. Ali, can you join us, please? Thank you very much indeed. No particular seating order here today. Also, technical specialist at TrackRef MENA, Christopher Laborde. Please join us. Hello, Ali. Nice to see you. Tafadhal, please take a seat. Christopher, come and join us on stage. Thanks very much indeed. And finally, Safraz Derki, the Board of Directors Secretary at the Emirates Green Building Council. Join us, Safraz. Hi, nice to see you, Christopher. Have a seat wherever you wish. Thank you very much indeed. Safraz, nice to see you. Safraz, I know, has some Iranian philosophy for us a little bit later on, as well as technical solutions. That I'm really looking forward to. Ali, let me start with you, if I can, because you begin by talking about the Middle East facilities management and the star rating system. It's an initiative by your organization. You say you want to educate the industry and different stakeholders in the important best practices of facilities management. First of all, let's just take a step back. Why did you feel the need to do this? What problem was it solving?
First of all, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think the construction industry, the development industry is becoming more aware that the facility management as a profession, as a concept is important. And I'm happy today to see facility management, stream within Cityscape. If you come few years early, and nobody will talk about facility management. I'm busy, I want to finish, I want to just hand over the facility, the owners want to take over, nobody thinks about how they're going to operate it, what's going to, energy is going to be consuming. So this is where we are really delighted to see that there is a big interest on FM, even from the developer. And this is where our initiative as a star rating system, it's more educational. People want a challenge, and this is what we are giving to the market. You want to challenge yourself? Look at FM as a holistic approach. We need you to look at your design. Think about your costs while you're designing your facility. Look at your life cycle costing. What are the operational needs? I know most of the building, they do core and shell, and they never think who will go into this building and how they will be seating. And finally, when you have a bank going into the building and you see the air conditioning is hitting the guy, the guy on the counter, he's getting sick. Today, we need to be sustainable. And this is where our star rating system is give you a guideline that talks about FM from the design to construction, the baby to be born, which is handover, and then how to ensure that the people who will maintain this building have enough information, they are trained. So this is an initiative that will help the industry to really look at FM from a best practice perspective.
It looks like the penny is dropping. I was looking last night on your website and at some of your members, and there's some big names there. I mean, just plucking a few out the air. Arab Tech is in there, Kansaheb, Majid Al Futtaim Properties. I mean, this massive long list and some big names. Are these organizations getting it right at the top level in the C-suite, Ali?
See, now, MIFMA as a non-profit association, we are not biased. We welcome everybody to be a member. People, companies, we work closely with government, not just UAE government, even in Saudi Arabia. We are happy to say that we are launching in December one of the biggest events in Saudi about FM, December 13 and 14. And there is a legislation taking place. They're going to launch at the same time. We're going to have a committee, FM committee in the Chamber of Commerce. So I think MIFMA is playing an exciting role. We are growing at least 30 to 40% every year in member. We have more than 110 members. They are not just FM companies. They're real estate owner, banks, and others. We, as a non-profit association, we want to show people that you need to spend time in your facility. You have to think how to ensure that the people are safe, the value of FM. It's not just giving a service. So this is why people are coming and being part of MIFMA, because we are trying to make the platform more accessible, more sustainable to everybody. You know, government needs our help. It's similar to a PMO and projects. You know, when you have a project, you have a project manager who you need him to manage your project. The same in facilities. You need a facility management expert. And where MIFMA plays a role, we're trying to find the right educations, the right training competencies for the people who can take these roles. We have lag in resources competency. And this is where the star rating system, again, is an initiative that we want everybody to be part of it, because, again, we are not trying to say who's better than whom, who's trying to implement best practice in their development, from the design to operation.
Sarfraz, if I can turn to you, you say we need to bust a myth, don't we? There is a myth, it needs to be busted, so bust it now.
Yes, in fact, there's a very big myth all across the industry, which says that it is very expensive to be sustainable, it is very expensive, the facility management is very expensive, it is very expensive to be energy efficient. But there is one of the biggest myths, and I would like to illustrate it with a Persian fable. I think in this room, most of the people would be familiar with Mullah Nasruddin. He had a very strange way of communicating the ideas. And this I borrowed from his fable. Mullah Nasruddin was searching something under some light post, rigorously searching that. So people came and asked, Mullah, what are you doing? He says that I'm searching the key. So they also started helping him. After few minutes passed, few hours passed, they said, what is happening? We are not getting the key. He says, Mullah, but where did you lost that key? He says that I lost it in the home. Then why are you searching here? He says, because the light is here. So this is the similar kind of paradigm we are living in. You know, we are familiar with certain kind of things. So we are seeking solution in the area where we are familiar with. We are not seeking solution where the solution lies, actually. And it needs a very, very strong paradigm shift. The buildings have changed drastically. The entire scenario has changed drastically. Gone were the days where in the name of building, you are having just light. Right now, everything is controlled. You want to switch on the light. Light is there. Heating, everything is being controlled. Not gone were the days where you are having four walls.
So how do you convince people that it is, to use your phrase, good business And you say good facilities management is good business. Now, maybe the Persian fable will grab people's attention, but you know that if you're going to convince the C-suite, you've got to back that up with some numbers as well. So go on.
The most important number is that one has to know the bull's eye. If you hit the bull's eye, you require just one shot. But what we do is, in most of the time, we use AK-47, thinking that one of the bullet will hit the bull's eye. So tell me which is more efficient way of doing it, or which is the most economical way of doing it.
I'll take the sniper, yeah.
One shot or thousands of shots?
The sniper.
So basically, this is what is important. That first one defines that what exactly is the attitude. If I ask this room one question, does this building require an air conditioning? I think most of the people will answer obvious.
Who thinks this building requires air conditioning? Okay, anyone disagree? Anyone think this building does not require air conditioning? Yes?
Yes, switch off the lights and...
Thank you. Just in the absence of a microphone, you said you can always find a way of cooling a building, perhaps through orienting it in a certain way.
I will, again, defer to it on that particular thing. Building doesn't require air conditioning. The people who are sitting there, they are the focus of the building. The moment you think in that particular manner, our answers will tend to differ than what we are familiar with. We tend to seek the answers through one area, which is electricity. That gives enormous amount of control to us. But that is not the most appropriate way of it. Electricity is the refinement of energies, not the ultimate application. So if you can find different ways, sure. This is what I say, that if you define the bullseye, you get it. And more often than not, in this part, I call it that most of the designs are obese.
The design, I like this, yeah, the obese designs, the buildings are like an overfed child.
Exactly. In fact, I'll give you another example to illustrate the same case. If you
quickly,
go and,
yeah. Yes, quickly, yes.
Quickly. Yeah. If you would have gone there in the buffet table, you would have seen most of the plates were overfull. Why was it? Because we were not sure that what we are going to eat. So a very large percentage of food was wasted. So this is same happens with the building. We are not very sure that what exactly we want. And that's how it becomes obese, it becomes more oversized. And then if it is oversized, I have designed the systems where I have been able to reduce the energy consumption of pumping system. Was almost like 70%. 70% saving, 30% means it was 5 to 6 times more oversized. And they didn't call me to reduce the energy consumption. That was the last thing to think about that. It came because it was obese. There was a lot of breakdown. In most of the places where we do the commissioning also, retro commissioning and commissioning, we notice that most of the sizing is done, you know what we call is safety factor? Safety factor is nothing
let's move on now. Let's move on to our third panelist now, because you say your big thing is HVAC, in particular, Christopher, gases. You have a big thing about these cooling, refrigeration gases, don't you? You think it's a big issue.
So I'm definitely honored to sit on this panel with the panelists, and I appreciate you hosting it. We're much more narrow than the other two gentlemen, in the sense that, so we pay attention to HVAC, and one of the metrics we pay attention to is refrigerant gas leak rate, which is not typically paid attention to too much. However, when you look at it in terms of either Abu Dhabi or Dubai, both roughly 2 million to 2.5 million people cities according to stats, it's a $1 billion problem, or it's a problem that's measured in US $1 billion increments. So the amount of energy that we lose each year in both Emirates is roughly $1 billion US. It's if we use US leak rates, which I think might be low for the region, it's around $1.17 billion that we're losing in Dubai and around 1.125 in Abu Dhabi. Now, when you look at the carbon footprint with the CO2 equivalent, most people don't realize this, but the CO2 equivalent for the HVAC systems are roughly 5 times the number of the cars, because the gas that's predominantly used here is fairly harmful to the ozone layer. So as a result, to change the energy requirements or to change the carbon footprint for cars and that population, you're going to have to take every driver. There's roughly 1.2 million drivers in each city. We'd have to convince them to buy smaller cars, buy electric cars, push the gas pedal less, push the brake pedal less, and that's the only way we're going to get rid of the carbon footprint or slow it down as far as cars go. But with a carbon footprint of 40 million tons from the HVAC roughly in both cities, we only have to affect the way that 5,000 technicians operate. Everyone I talk to looks around and says, we can't do this. We can't affect the way technicians do what they do. This will be harder than changing the driving habits of 1.2 million drivers. This is incredible. I don't think we can do this. But it's not. It's a matter of providing a little bit of a direction and accountability. And I know that this goes on and on. I know that I'm in front of a room full of people, and many of which are FM providers. And the FM providers look over and they say, listen, my margins have been cut this year, and they were cut last year. And I can't afford to have the training I need to get my technicians to the level to handle this stuff the way they need to handle it. And then the government looks over and they say, well, if we regulate this, no one's going to pay attention to it. So there's kind of a dog chasing its tail scenario. And I've been here for about a year and a half studying the market as carefully as I can from every angle that I can. We have a solution, but I mean, it's a tough problem to solve because there are so many people that almost can't afford to look at it from their business where they're doing what they're doing. So I'm a big believer in stuff like what Ali's doing in the star rating system where you shed light on it. There's a saying from a U.S. justice that sunlight is the best disinfectant. And we also had a streetlight discussion about where to look for keys. There needs to be some sunlight shed on, in HVAC, on basic things like regular changing of the filters and making sure that, and paying attention to how much gas loss, and having that information being transferred or conveyed to the stakeholders. Typically the guy who pays the bill on this massive chiller when it goes down is the guy who gets the least amount of information. He has the least amount of accessible information. So what he does is he says, listen, I need to get this for the lowest price I can get it. And he's very clear, and they come to him and they say, well, this is the lowest price I can get it. But nobody has clear data on if you were to do it this way, it would last a little bit longer. If you were to do it this way, it would last a little bit longer. And this goes for the purchasing of the chiller as well as the maintenance of the chiller, especially the maintenance of the chiller. I guarantee you someone's going to step on stage today and give a presentation about how the cost of the building is only 30% of the cost that the building will require over the course of the lifetime of the building. They're going to say the next 70% is going to be the operating expense. And a lot of those numbers are taken from North America and Europe, but I think when you look at the operating expense of many buildings in the Gulf, you'll find that that number is even higher. It gets much, much higher. So in HVAC, Houston, Texas is an example I like to use. So Houston, Texas is a little cooler than Abu Dhabi and Dubai, but it's much more humid in its peak month of August. So essentially, it's going to take about the same amount of energy to cool a cubic meter of air in both locations. Houston, Texas spends 35% of its energy on HVAC. There's a study that came out from Masdar that said we spend roughly 60 to 70%. It's from that 30% of our annual energy bill that I come up with the 1.125 and the 1.19 billion US dollars in energy. I mean, this is a serious problem that can be affected by a little bit of sunlight and changing the way that the technicians handle themselves and registering assets and paying attention to certain things.
Fascinating insights. I'm keen to bring the audience into this because we don't have much time. We've got a packed schedule this afternoon. Who's got the first comment or question? We do have some microphones. Oh, yes, please. Thank you, gentleman there.
The question is for the gentleman who spoke last.
If you can talk straight into the microphone, please.
You know, I appreciate the information you just gave us and all the statistics, but, you know, we deal with district cooling here. You know,
roughly 15% of the buildings in Dubai are on district cooling. There's still another 85% that are not.
Correct. But probably if you talk to many of the people here, they're probably dealing with the new Dubai, the 15% that you're talking about. I'm sure that many of us would be interested to know more about district cooling and how you can control costs on that. Or
interesting points.
So with district cooling, There's the delta T scenario where you have to return the water, I believe, 9 degrees centigrade warmer than you got it, because that was the design factor in making the district cooling system capacity. So you sign up and you say, I need this amount of water or this volume of cooling, and they deliver it to you. And then you put your building online, and then it doesn't require that much. Either the occupation is low or something else comes up, and you aren't able to redeliver the water with that 9-degree difference that you agreed on. A system like ours is going to be able to come in and help you figure out how much fresh air to enter into the building to get your delta T at 9, which can potentially also boost the health rate because you're going to enter more fresh air into the system. That's only one of many solutions, but you're going to see that it's debatable as to whether or not it's chillers or air handlers that bring up the most bill. Most people are going to say, oh, it's the chillers. And by design, the chillers are what raise the energy. But
Ali, can I bring you into this one? Because it's an interesting point about district. We've got so little time. I want to bring Ali in.
I've just got 7 words, though. Real quick.
7 words.
The fans and the filters. We pay attention to that, too. It's another one of the metrics. It's a big deal. Ali.
I don't want to talk about district cooling because I think the model is playing here in the Gulf is biased to the end user. It's more return on investment to the operator. So I want to talk about regulations because I think we need to enforce regulation. As the government today opened the subsidy of the petrol, why don't we increase the prices for the gas? What do you think?
Yes, please. We have one more comment.
My question is to Christopher again. I think you've touched on a nerve there. Why can't we train these people, the technicians, before they come into the country and have some kind of a licensing or an evaluation process for them?
They're working on that, and it's very hard to organize the system right now, but they are working on it. I've heard from multiple entities that they're trying to get it set up in Abu Dhabi and that they're trying to get it set up in Dubai, and we're hoping to be part of that solution for registering technicians and educating technicians on our platform, but that's an excellent question.
Ali, I know obviously rating systems are something you're working on, particularly for buildings. What about for people as well? Should that be the role of a non-profit organization, or should that be the role of a government? To you first of all, and then you, Safran.
You made my work easy. Yes, it is the government role, but as a non-profit association, we are a platform or a place where they can refer to. We represent the voice of the industry. All the professionals within the Middle East, they come from maybe 140 nationalities and they have experience. We have to come back before we introduce regulations, come back to the association, work with us, and I'm sure the cost will not be higher. People, when they think about introducing regulation and enforcement, the cost will be higher. I think we have to work smarter in managing our building rather than thinking about increasing the costs.
We've got so much to get through. We've got so little time. I'll take 1 or 2 more comments or questions on this issue. Who's got the final comment or question for our panel? 3,
Imar?
2, 1. Okay, then it falls to me. What I want you to leave the room with is a wish list. We can't solve every problem overnight. There's a whole bunch of things I'm sure we'd like to do, but if there's one thing that we should focus our attention and energy on addressing, on changing, on fixing, or improving, what would be that one thing, the kind of call to action to the room, go into the streets and do X? What's X, Safraz, first of all?
Awareness, awareness, awareness. The main thing, no matter what kind of regulations you put in, if the awareness is not there, its implementation will not be there. To me, regulations are like tip of the iceberg. One can nudge towards that thing, but it is not force. And awareness comes the moment you get aware that, and the moment it starts affecting your pocket, everything will start moving.
Thanks very much indeed. Christopher, your last, the call to action.
You know, in a perfect world, I think it would be wonderful if there was a way for the HVAC assets to be registered on a platform that is visible by probably DEWA, since DEWA takes the biggest hit. Those require the most power. And it would be great for all the technicians and the suppliers to be registered on a platform that works for the DM so that they have the information. Between the two, we'd have tons of information to make very smart decisions and help keep things moving forward.
And finally, Ali.
Thank you. I think the handover stage is really critical. We have a critical mega project coming up, and when I go and meet them 2 years down the road, are you ready for handover? What handover? We are just busy to finish the building or the project. So I think we have to regulate handover. We have to ensure there is a quality people in the handover stage who ensure that the baby is being delivered healthy. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, it's been fascinating. Thank you very much indeed. Take your seats. Really appreciate your very forthright insights today.